Hello. We are here again for our April monthly homeschooling check-in. We personally just finished spring break. It was a much needed break, and I hope that if you have not already taken your spring break, then you will be doing so soon. We try to do it around the equinox. I do believe, right after the equinox. So that following Monday, we went to our game schooling. So we were just doing like our online activities. And then we did nothing. Like Mom was like, I'm done. Done. But I really want to talk about how a lot of people don't realize when you're homeschooling how close you can get to burnout. Okay. I take about 2 weeks for spring break because by the time we're done with the post-holiday slump, there's 2 weeks there that it takes us to get through actually onto the curriculum that I'm writing. And then after that, we start going through, and then we have to take a break. We take a week-long break for Mag's birthday. And we do schooling, but it's catered to like birthdays and holidays and things like that. So then after that, we have to get back up and pick it back into speed. And we have hit the PDA wall multiple times since her birthday. And I'm talking like to the point where she doesn't even want to like put on clothes because clothes are a big sensory issue. She doesn't want to do her regular hygiene tasks. Like everything is a fight. Everything is an issue. Every single little thing becomes a big thing. And it shouldn't, but it is. And that's when I realized not only was she getting burned out, but I was getting burned out. And it's because I wasn't properly building our breaks in. And I do this every single year. I don't know why. Like, at least this year, I just accepted it and said, yep, we're doing 2 weeks, not a problem. But for some reason, every year, I think I can just power right through the entire month of March with no issue. And that is a lie. But I want to offer you some hope in that if you need to take some extra time, you can. There's nothing saying you can't pick up and say you did a lesson or you did some extra time on the weekend with some video game schooling or some board game schooling or something like that you read an extra little bit, or you did some extra cooking together and that's your math. You can find space to do it. You can find time to do it. If you really have to log those hours, that's where that comes in. Even if you push past like a certain time, because I know like Izzy's school is done that last week of May. Out here in Wisconsin, it's the last week of May, and sometimes there's a couple days extra in June if you got to make up like snow days and things. And we try to keep up with that, if only because everybody, like, that's when a lot of the coupons happen, is like towards the end of the year, so I can cash in on those before there's a big rush. And that's neither here nor there. I went off on a tangent, but we try to keep things as easily flowing, flexible as we can. So I add extra hours through the summer as I need to. If I feel like we were short, if I feel like we didn't meet the goals that I had hoped for, and I never set them too high. I always want her to exceed the goals. But this year, we're really struggling with a lot of things. So I took the whole spring break off. I didn't plan nothing. I didn't do nothing. I didn't research nothing. I didn't do nothing. I decided that I was going to read my book. I was going to play some video games. We were going to play some board games, watch movies together and things like that. I've watched all of the Sonic Hedgehog movies like 2 or 3 times now, And that's actually helped me find a new angle to readjust and come back again to meet her needs and meet my needs. I also had a pretty big revelation during this week. And as much as I want to, we might be joined by a Bosco, and I apologize if he's licking on me. I see you. I'm recording right now. You want everybody to see you? Okay. He's such a wild boy. It made me realize that how I wanted to teach her was not in a way that she wanted to learn. As much as she enjoys the mystical. We're not giving kisses right now. No. No kisses. If it ain't the kids, it's the dog. Am I right? As much as I wanted to teach her all things whimsical and wonderful and magical and lovely, I was not meeting her where she was. I have to readjust. I can still bring some of it. You know, we're still doing storytelling. We're still doing our art. We're still doing the songs and things like that. We're still doing the holidays, all of that fun stuff. But I realized that the way I bring things to her is not how her brain needs to work. She likes to sit down and just go until her brain is done. And then we'll do some practice work the next day or something like that. Yeah. Is that how she is? It is, yeah. So, the other part of it is I feel like I have been sort of inhibiting her ability to do a lot of things because I'm trying to keep her at a certain pace. I'm trying to keep her from burning herself out too fast. I'm trying to keep her on task and on schedule for now until we can readjust for next year. But you can't always do that. Sometimes you have to readjust mid-year. Sometimes you're 2-3 months into a curriculum or a style of teaching and you realize this doesn't work for my kid. You have to give yourself grace enough to let it go. Otherwise, you're going to be miserable and they're going to be miserable. You have to be able to let it go. So if you take anything away from this, it is that burnout is real. It sneaks up on you a lot faster than you think it does. And that you have to be willing to let some things go, okay? Now, as far as what we are learning this month, we have decided to go in the direction of the American Tall Tales. So we have been working through folklore, folk tales, and things like that. And I thought it was about time to look at, because we have been doing a lot of indigenous studies too. We've been doing a lot of indigenous stories, and now it's time to look at that American spirit style of story. But they're not all terrible. They're not all bad. They have fantastic, like, unfathomable acts that have happened. And it helps to kind of push us into the third grade idea of where I'm still doing some of this, right? I'm meeting her where she's at, but I'm still adhering to a lot of the Waldorf influence of like how to meet their needs for their age and their emotional understanding. So she is not emotionally 9 yet. She is emotionally 5. And so instead of trying to push her into learning about the whole exit from Eden, you know, the whole I am my own person now, moving away from the family bubble, we are now looking at how to emotionally meet her at that 6-year-old level. You know, that's when we start to become, you know, start to take in the whole, oh, I can do things. Oh, I am not just my family. She's asking a lot of questions about, like, where do we live? Where, you know, am I in the state? Every time we leave the house now are we still in Wisconsin? Did we leave Wisconsin? Where did we go? What are we doing? So she's getting curious about, like, there's the inner bubble where it's like an extension of the parent, and then they are in the family circle, and then they are coming out of the, like, they go into, like, the community where they're aware of their community. And it's not just, oh, I'm just here now because I'm here with mom. And then they go off and they realize they're kind of their own person. They're starting to form their own opinions, their own habits. They are influenced more by friends. And then that keeps growing and growing every few years. So instead of preparing her for the 9 year, I have to remember, academically, she might be 5th and 6th grade. Emotionally, she is still 6. She is still 5 and 6. I am trying to balance the neurodivergent need to soak up information like a sponge and the neurodivergent need to be gentle with the emotional learning for self. Okay? So, anyway, back to where I was. So we're not really doing a whole lot of the Exit Eden for next year. Instead, what we're doing is we're going to keep focusing on stories, but in a different aspect. Right now, I've got a book about Pecos Bill. It's short, and she can read this one, obviously. This is well underneath her ability. But what we're focusing on is slowing down and really taking in the context. So, for example, they're talking about Pecos Bill. He became friends with the rattlesnakes and the mountain lions. Well, why is that amazing? You know, are rattlesnakes, you know, a danger? Is it him becoming friends with the dangerous animals, is that an amazing feat? Or is that just, okay, it happens? Like, taking that the context of what it means to, you know, be friends with dangerous things, you know. So, more context when you're reading. The same thing will go with Paul Bunyan. And we're going to talk about how, obviously, I don't know if y'all around my age could remember this book. This was one of my favorite books when I was in school. I loved everything about it. I thought this book was the best thing ever. And this was, 1984. I loved The Blue Ox. So we're going to talk about, like, why that's good. You know, why it's important that Babe is in everything. The gentleness of caring for those around you. And the honor that comes with that. Building the communities no matter where you are is going to be really big. Especially with the way the world is right now. Teaching her, instilling that in her about honor, integrity, and community. That's what a lot of these American tall tales are for. Ingenuity, integrity, things like that. We also have Calamity Jane. So this is going to be really fun. We're actually going to do some hand-eye coordination. I bought a Nerf gun. I bought a Nerf gun. And we are going to shoot empty water bottles. And we're going to pretend to be Calamity Jane. And then I don't have the book, because it already got sent back to the library. We already finished it this week. But we also learned about John Henry. And I found the old videos of all of these characters from like the 60s, the 70s. I remember watching them when I was a kid, you know. But I made sure that we found for some reason, pulled off of the Disney Vault, the original like American stories. And John Henry was one of them. The music in it is beautiful. And you're able to see why it was so important for John Henry to do what he did. It's not just because, oh, he went through the mountains, that's amazing for a black man. It's how his work and his word set the precedent to demand people give him the respect and be good on their word, to give them the land, you know, to give everybody who was working that railroad the land that they needed. And that's another important thing to have. You know, again, we're going back into integrity. It wasn't just, you know, John Henry was an incredible character, but it wasn't just, oh, we're going to read this to like, because it's Black History Month. We're just going to read this because, oh, we should. There's more to it than just cosplaying and being an ally. And I feel like if you're sincere as you're teaching, you're going to build that compassion and that empathy that is so sorely needed. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's what we're doing for that. For science, we are starting our gardening and our herbalism. So I have the kids' herbal book, and we're starting our sprouts. Or we're starting our seedlings, because we are still under frost advisory right now. Like, it's still getting into the teens and 20s. Can't really do much about that. But by the time we're finished with this month, we should be able to put them in the ground. Okay? So that's going to be important. We'll be doing some wild seeding. So I'm going to go and find, like, native flowers that I can just take the bag and just throw everywhere. Right? So we're going to try that, because I miss having my dragonflies. I miss my honeybees. I miss all of them. And I know everybody's just like, oh, why do you want those around here? Because they are so important to the ecosystem. And then we will be moving on into, like, our local ecosystem. So we live by the river. We've got sandhill cranes. We've got fish. We've got turtles. We've got snakes. We've got all kinds of creatures. We've got all kinds of critters. We need to learn about the smallest little thing, from the earthworm to the eagle. And that's where we will go as we learn more about our community. So we're going to start with ecosystems, and then we're going to apply that, because she does really good with animals. We're going to go and apply that with people before the end of the year. So, like, we are the littlest little bubble, and then we have, you know, ourselves, and then we have our family, and then we have our friends, and then, you know, and grow with it. in a palatable way for her to be able to sit with it and realize how big it is, but also how important we still are. One person is still one person, you know? So, as far as math goes, we are coming back around to reiterate the multiplication tables. Now, she had almost all of them, 1 to 12, memorized. But I want to make sure that we're back on track so that we can start introducing the most basic part of division. Now, we kind of touched on it a little bit when we do our measuring with our cooking. And we kind of touched a little bit on it when we talked about like time. So we sliced the time pie in 4, and we did 15 minutes is 1/4, 60 or 30 minutes is half, 3/4 is, and then we say quarter till, so that's 3/4, and then back up to the top. So that's 4 the hours divided into 4. Little things like that. She's having a little bit of trouble fully grasping a lot of that, so we're gonna pull it back and go back to the multiplication part and really solidify how we feel and make sure it's in there good, because I don't want her to skip any foundational steps just because she can get through it quick and get it right quick. I want to make sure it's really there. Oh, have you ever felt like that, where you're like, I have to slow this child down because they're just going to take off like a rocket and it's amazing, but then they're going to come back and they're going to have learned all these things, but they can't remember how to add or subtract 2 and 3-digit numbers, That's where we were for a little while. Like, she took off with geometry like it was nothing, and then forgot how to do place value. So that was interesting. That was interesting. Let's see. And then, yep, we're going to be working on, let me think. So she still does a lot of physical therapy with the motor skills in her hands, so the fine motor skills. So we're still working on writing, and we're going to work on some more painting. We are also going to be making puppets, so we can work with this here to help with scissor cutting, like this is actually kind of a difficult task for her. So going from here, we're going to work these muscles here by making puppets and putting on puppet shows of the stories that we're reading and making some of her own. Let's see, we're also doing a little bit of watercolor, still cutting and pasting. I'm going to attempt to work with her some more on like chalk drawing, just to get these in, and doing the form drawings for her hands and her fingers all together. We'll see how well she tolerates that. There's a lot of things with that. And she has expressed an interest in learning how to crochet. So let's get through the puppets and the cutting, and then we'll work with the crochet, because that's this motion here, that's this motion. And even though she was trying to do some knitting, that was back in February of last year, I had to let knitting go. She was doing hand knitting and it was fine, but I had to let that go because I literally had a heart attack. I had a micro heart attack last February, and everybody was like, oh, it's because you were stressing out for a week over trying to learn how to knit. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure knitting, even though that's what I was doing, I was successfully purling when I was having my heart attack. But I don't think that knitting is what's actually caused it. So anyway, I have yapped your ear off enough. Please feel free to leave comment and conversation if you have any questions for me about ways to move forward. Remember that I have not just younger kids, but I also have homeschooled older kids. So like Izzy's in the 5th grade. My oldest Delilah, she is graduating this year, and she's graduating in like 6 weeks. I know. Sometimes it just hits you. You're like, holy shit. She is about to be out in that world in a way that I can't always protect her. You know what I mean? Like, oh. Sometimes it just hits you. Oh. Anyway, if you have any questions about different resources or anything like that, if you want to just chit chat for a second, feel free to leave me a message or leave a comment, and I will get back to it as soon as that I can. I check my Patreon every day for comments. Please don't feel like you're alone. If you're in burnout and you're about ready to give it up, please do not feel like you're alone. I also have joined a community called the Raw Roots homeschooling community. It is a witchy and pagan community. I will be leaving the link to that Discord down below. So if you are interested in joining the pagan homeschooling Discord, feel free to. There is chit chat every day. We do magical stuff every week, and there's lots of check-ins. There's lots of chatter. It's really nice. And the lady who runs it, I've already been through 2 of her sessions because I came to her. I was like, if you have any insight about burnout, because this is me hitting the wall yet again, I would love to hear it. And she's also neurodivergent too. So she's kind of, it's not like she's telling me to go take a bubble bath and, go and take some deep breaths and do, like, no, she'll sit there and she'll tell you what you probably need to hear. Or not necessarily what you need to hear, but what you need to do. So I'm going to put all that information down below. I'm in that Discord. I'm pretty active in it too. So if you have any questions, comments, or anything like that, come and find us. And I hope that you have a fantastic month.